Unity beat the UniTeam, but that'll mean, of course, that egos will have to be set aside. Or is a Marcos-Duterte electoral victory the ultimate juggernaut? But first, we're going local. Our guest, Ormoc City Mayor Richard Gomez, who is contesting the congressional seat of his wife, Lucy. Mayor Richard will be challenged by former Comelec Commissioner Goyo Larrazabal, who guested on the show 2 weeks ago. Good evening, I'm Pia Hontiveros. Welcome to your weekly political appointment fix, politics as usual. Mayor Richard Gomez is our guest via Zoom. He's joining us live from Ormoc City. Mayor Richard, thank you very much for joining us this evening. Dati tumawag kami sa inyo pero wala ata kayong sagot sa amin sa imbitasyon namin.
Thank you, Pia. Siguro, alam mo naman sa probinsya, minsan mahina yung signal. In fact, I was in one of the inner barangays campaigning tonight. I excused myself para dito kasi sa City Hall merong internet. So I'm here inside the office.
Okay. Well, that's something you should do, no? Kung ma-elect ka to Congress. Improve the internet in Leyte.
Yeah, we have to continue talking to the telcos. Although in the city, wala nang problema yung internet. May 5G na rin kami dito and converges already here. So fiber optics is available already in Ormoc. Except that in the outskirts of Ormoc, medyo malalayo ng barangay, medyo mahina pa yung signal.
The 6 municipalities, right, that make up the 4th district where you are running.
Yeah, 6 municipalities in one city that makes up the 4th district of Leyte.
I was interviewing former Comelec Commissioner Goyo Larrazabal about 2 weeks ago, and he was talking about what it is like, he says, in the 6 municipalities. Para bang, well, he didn't use that word, but it sounds like parang napag-iwanan, no? That there's much that needs to be done in those 6 municipalities. And we talk about them because that is in the 4th district where you are running against him for Congress. Can you give us your side of the story? You know, how bad is it or how good is it in these 6 municipalities?
Well, ganun talaga pag merong kalaban, they will always paint a bad picture of you. But I'll tell you this, Pia, Ormoc used to be the drug capital of Eastern Visayas of Region 8. And when I became mayor in 2016, and up until now, it will show on the records of the PNP that in 2017, 2018, and 2020, Ormoc became one of the safest cities in the Philippines. No? And with regards to being a progressive city, in 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, I worked on the the fiscal management of Ormoc City, and I worked on the assets of the city. And since that time on, we've been the richest city in Region 8 under my watch, under my leadership. So,
Mayor. Mayor, let me clarify. Hindi naman yung Ormoc City ang problema, kumbaga, ni Goyo. He's talking about the 6 municipalities in the district where you and he are running.
Well, because I'm the mayor of Ormoc, so I can only run Ormoc City, and the six other municipalities are 4th and 5th class municipalities. So you can imagine how low the income of those municipalities are. That's why it's very important for the congressman to be working with the mayors, because the congressman is really the one that is able to lobby to bring in funds for, let's say, funds for roads, for bridges, for school buildings. Yun kaya importante talaga magka-partner yung mayor tsaka yung congressman.
Your wife, Lucy, is congresswoman now, right?
Yes.
Of that district?
Yes,
for how many terms? 1 or 2?
Actually 4 terms since 2010. Pero ang trabaho kasi ng congressman, hindi naman magpatakbo ng munisipyo or ng city. Ang kanila is to craft laws and to be able to bring programs and projects sa mga lugar.
Okay. There was something else that Commissioner Goyo said that struck me, and he said that at the height of the pandemic, a few people would like die at the borders of Ormoc because there was that lockdown that you all had to contend with, no? So, may ganun ba nangyari? Was it that bad that people couldn't enter Ormoc because of the lockdown and that they would die at the borders because nga they didn't have the medical help that they could get if they were in their municipalities?
The thing is, when you're a lawyer, you should learn your facts. You should know your facts. Hindi ka nakikinig sa mga chismis, sa mga kwento-kwento lang ng mga tao. So that's a problem with this Larrazabal guy. Nakikinig lang siya sa kwento. So although he was born in Ormoc City, but he was never here, especially during pandemic. So he doesn't know what's happening in Ormoc City. During the pandemic, we were very strict. Yes, we would have lockdowns, but when there are emergencies, when we need to bring in patients, they're able to enter the city at any time.
Okay. A while ago, Mayor Richard, you said that Ormoc used to be the drug capital of Region 8. Whose fault was that?
The fault of the previous mayors. And then ang problema namin dito, the previous mayors, yung brother-in-law is really in the list of President Duterte as a high-value target. So when they were the ones running the city, drugs really proliferated in Ormoc City. And that is
Can you name this previous mayor?
These are exactly the same people that Goyo Larrazabal is running with and associated with. So yung mga tao na kasama ni Goyo are all a lot of them are drug personalities.
Who is this previous mayor? Can you name him?
What's that?
Who is the previous mayor who you say is responsible for that?
The previous mayors are Codillas.
The Codillas. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Now, what are you going to do, Mayor Richard, for the district where you're running? Like you said, 4th and 5th class municipalities, and well, Goyo has his own plans also, no? But there are things that need to be done so that yung hindi naman mapag-iwanan itong mga municipalities na ito.
A congressman should work on number one, the biggest law in the country is really the budget law. So as a congressman, you really have to be part of that para makalabi ka na makadala ka ng maraming projects dito. And then you should involve yourself in bringing budget and putting more funds for health programs. So for the DOH na nagsaserve dito sa district and the Ormoc City, Department of Agriculture, and you'll be able to bring in equipment. You'll bring in programs for the people. Marami yan. So yun yung trabaho ng congressman, is really to work on the budget and to be able to bring programs, projects, and work on actions that needs to be done dito sa district. But it's totally different running a city or a municipio. People kasi sometimes they do not understand the difference between executive and legislative. They think kasi pag congressman ka, ikaw yung papatakbo ng syudad. No, mali.
Right.
Yun ang hindi naintindihan ni Goyo. Hindi niya naintindihan yung difference ng executive at saka ng legislative.
Okay, parang tira mo kay Goyo ngayon. But
Oo,
anyway.
kasi lagi mo sinasabi yung pangalan, kaya binabalik ko.
Oo, okay. Mayor Richard, ang balita ko kanina, you said na si Goyo daw nakikinig sa chismis, no? So you don't like chismis very much either. Pero ang chismis ko, ang balita ko, is that you're doing quite well there in the race and that you are the favored candidate. Is that true?
Well, siguro because as a mayor, nakita lang na merong performance yung ginawa ko dito. And like yung sinabi ko kanina, Pia, it's not easy to make the city the safest city in the country. And it's not also easy to make Ormoc City the richest city in Region 8 because marami kaming syudad dito. And may mga ganon, no? Ease of doing business. We've been doing awards. So when you're doing the right thing in government service, you are benefited with awards. You're given awards. So it confirms the work that you do.
All right. Final words, Mayor Richard Gomez.
Well, first, Pia, thank you so much for this opportunity to to talk to you. Thank you so much also to your listeners. It's campaign season, and things are getting heated up in a lot of areas, especially here in Ormoc City. But we will survive, and hopefully, with the help of the people, we will win these elections. Thank you.
Mayor Richard Gomez of Ormoc City running for Congress to replace his wife Lucy. Thank you very much, Mayor Richard. We'll be back after a quick break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. This is Politics as Usual. I'm Pia Hontiveros. Now, back in 2016, some 3 days before the elections, I spoke with the late former President Noynoy Aquino, and he said he was trying to cobble together a united front among Grace Poe, Mar Rojas, and Jojo Binay, because by then it was evident that Rodrigo Duterte was headed for electoral victory. It was a last-ditch attempt that had all the hallmarks of political desperation.
Mayor Duterte has roughly about 30%. So that means he doesn't have the rest of the 70%. I'm trying to get all of these different voices from so many sectors together, and in that sense, perhaps help our candidates get together and have that united front.
Did you talk to Mar Rojas about it, or Grace Poe?
I did talk to Mar Rojas.
You did, sir?
I did talk to him, but for this about past 3 days. A little text exchange with Senator Grace Poe last night, but that isn't also conclusive.
Mr. Duterte won by a very comfortable margin, and the rest was 6 years of Philippine politics Duterte style. Now it's happening all over again, only this time it is a juggernaut tandem, the sign of a family that sees a return to the palace as vindication paired with the combative daughter of the incumbent. Weeks ago, VP candidate Rizalito David called for a united front of anti-Marcos forces. We talked about that on the show last week with Lito himself and analyst Richard Hiderian.
Yung nitty-gritty nitong Grand Coalition na aking proposal, medyo matagal yung proseso nun. Pero in principle, dapat nag-a-agree na kami ngayon na isa na lang ang kandidato ng for Vice President ng non-administration candidates. Tsaka isa na lang para sa presidente for non-administration candidates. So they will lose by default, no?
Oo.
Ang kagandahan nito kasi wala naman ako sinasabing mag-withdraw yung mga kandidato eh. Ang sinasabi ko, continue on campaigning, but campaigning for the person that we chose. And then siguro dun sa final 2 weeks, we'll have 3 or 4 grand rallies na lahat ng kandidato for president at lahat ng kandidato for vice president supporting yung dalawa, no? Nando doon, no? Iba yung impact noon sa taong bayan. Pag nakita yon, bakit nga ganyan, no? So matatabunan lahat yung mga naunang projections eh.
That's why sinasabi ko dati pa na kailangan natin ng runoff elections, di ba? I mean,
Yeah.
that's the whole point of runoff elections. So, because wala tayong history of runoff elections, and for me, I don't know about the geniuses who came up with our constitution, but why no one thought about it, we don't have this culture of real coalition building, which is really a give and take, which is really a matter of faith, no? It's a matter of conviction thing. At good luck getting that in the middle of a game.
Well, yung sinasabi ni Dito David kanina, yung what should be happening now, ngayon, that was 1 week ago, exactly 7 days ago. So what has happened since then? Support has shifted from the current number 3, Isko Moreno, to Lenny Robredo, and one of them is with us tonight, Tim Orbos, longtime government official, a member of a Pangasinense political family. Now, but before we, his brother, Tim's brother, Oka, running mate to then Reforma standard-bearer Rene de Villa in the 1998 presidential campaign, was also with us on the show last week, Rene de Villa. Huh? But before we talk to Tim, let's get some sense of where we are and where we are headed. Professor Julio Julay Tihanki is with us here in the studio tonight. Professor Julay, thank you very much for being with us. So the question muna is where, what is this, what is the landscape at the moment when we talk about uniting?
Well, of course, the lead is unprecedented. No? We might see the very first majority president in the post-Marcos period. No? Ironically, a Marcos will become the first majority candidate, no? and namesake of the late dictator. But if we will look at the 2016 SWS exit poll, I think 54.2% of the voters decided only after February. And a big chunk of 18% decided on election day itself. No, if this trend is repeated in this electoral cycle, I think there is still time. No, but time is of the essence. No, we have entered the final stage of the campaign season. And nandun na tayo, Pia, doon sa tinatawag na hora de peligro, no? So
Sobrang peligro na
sobrang
sa kanila.
peligro na, no? So ito na yung panahon upang yung mga ibang kandidato pag-isip-isipan na nila kung ano ang plano nila, no? So I think if time is of the essence, I think it's high time for some of the candidates to do a Doy Laurel or a Mar Rojas, and start giving way to the most competitive candidate.
Of course, Goyo Larrazabal, you're referring to the 1986 snap election campaign when
Yes.
well, he was supposed to run for
Yes,
president,
yes,
and
yes.
the widow Cory comes
Right,
up, and
right.
Doy just said, "Okay,
Right.
fine, I'm going to run
Yes,
VP."
Of course. And of course, in our history, there were two instances in which one of the candidates gave way to a more competitive candidate, and that resulted in victory. And that was in 1986 for Cory Aquino, and in 2010 for Noynoy
Yeah.
Aquino.
Hora de peligro, last Tuesday nga, sabi nga ni Richard, dapat itong March na to, March 29, dalawang araw na lang. Ngayon,
Right.
April na ngayon.
Right. But again, if we will look at previous electoral cycles, the most competitive was in 92 when Miriam Defensor Santiago managed to catch up with then frontrunner FBR, but eventually kinapos, no? So FBR eventually won that one, no?
Yeah, but Miriam claimed she was cheated.
Yeah, of course, no. And 2 out of 5 post Marcos elections we have seen come from behind in 2004 with GMA over FPJ, but of course that was contested as well. And then of course the classic come from behind victory of Rodrigo Duterte in 2016.
Okay. But, di ba, sabi mo, the people should do a Doy Laurel or a Mar Rojas,
Right.
parang, well, set aside their egos,
Right,
and then sakripisyo na lang, parang
Right,
ganon.
right.
Pero given their character, what they're like,
Right.
the way they think,
Right.
their minds, their hearts, is
right.
that possible at this point in time? And of course, what we're saying is that the idea is for them to unite behind, well, Lenny, the number 2.
Yeah, well, of course, whoever is the most competitive. And at this point in time, Vice President Lenny Robredo is the consistent second placer, while, of course, Mayor Isko Moreno is the consistent second choice. No? So what's been happening in the previous months is these two candidates have been competing for the right to face the front runner in the finals. No? So just like in basketball, diba? So it's
Yeah.
like they're competing.
Are we
no?
going to talk basketball tonight? UAAP?
Talo kami sa inyo. Okay. Sige.
Okay.
So, yun nga. No? So, I think at this point, we must dig deeper into the numbers. No? And the recent release of Lilo, they've also, I've seen some of the numbers, in terms of the soft votes. I think the rest, Vice President Lenny has the most average of hard votes compared to the rest of the candidates. And the other candidates have the highest average, and by average I mean from January to March, of soft votes that can be converted.
Hard votes meaning kung die-hard Lenny ka, talagang kakamping ka na
Kakamping ka
talaga. Na
talaga.
dating
So,
dilawan. Oo.
dilawan, right.
Okay. But, and very quickly lang, yes, some arguments against that kasi, and they would say, oy, kahit mag-withdraw ko, hindi naman sigurado ba ako makakapunta kay Lenny yung boto ko.
Right. In fact, if kung basta-basta na lang mag-withdraw nang walang endorsement, di ba? Kung mag-withdraw ka, tapos hindi mo naman in-endorse si Vice President Lenny, baka yung boto mo mapunta pa kay BBM.
But if you
makadagdag
endorse,
pa.
but not necessarily withdraw, or parang your name is still there, endorsement. Okay.
So the idea here is really, kasi it's a booster, It's kumbaga ang tawag dyan, force multiplier,
Oo.
So VP Lenny already has the momentum in terms of the groundswell, and now she's working on
Okay.
vote conversion.
Booster shot, parang booster shot ng
Booster
bakuna.
shot,
Okay.
right.
Kanina, nabanggit ko na si Tim Orbos, and he's waiting via Zoom.
Right.
Of course, his group moving over to Lenny Robredo. So, Tim Orbos, hi, thank you very much for being with us tonight. So tell us first, kwento mo muna, how did this happen? Why this change of heart?
Hi, Pia. Good evening. No, I just want to make a correction.
Sorry.
Some of our group, some of the members of our volunteers did switch already to Lenny. Ako
Okay.
personally, I'm pushing for a unity call.
Okay.
Magsama-sama sila. Yun lang yung sa akin kasi. What makes it different from the call of Sambayan before is that we, the volunteers, the ground workers, the ones working for all these candidates, we're the ones calling na, mag-usap na kayo. It's a very simple call na tama po yung sinabi nyo. We're already at the late stage of the game. And we feel there's still something to be done. Ang election po natin, it's always winner take all. And here we are, pagsisisihan natin if we don't take the one last step in trying to make it work. Sabi ko nga Pia, yung grupo nila BBM, buti nga sila united. Tayo dito hindi. So why can't we just extend a hand to each other, make the text message or call silang mga presidentiables anyway. Nag-apply naman sila eh.
Yeah.
Why can't they make that call to each other and try to unify what is supposed to be there's commonalities amongst all of
Okay,
us.
so your personal stand is you're not shifting support yet, but some of your colleagues have done so, and you yourself think that dapat isang common candidate lang. So who is going to be that common candidate?
There are, tulad na sinabi ni Professor kanina, madami man permutations or ways how to do it. The important thing is they sit down right now. Time is of the essence. It can be, tulad na sinabi po ninyo, yung pinakamataas. Why not? Yung pong nangyari sa Israel, and I'm sure you know this, no? When the opposition took charge of themselves and they formed a coalition government and nag-power sharing. Why can't we do that?
Yeah.
Hindi, ang dami naman pagka ako po ay running an election and I lost. Ang sakit niyan. Pag
Yes.
natapos ng election, all this drama, all this paglalabang kita hanggang kamatayan, hanggang wala na po yan.
Yeah.
Wala na yan eh.
Oo,
So
tama.
why can't we just do it now? Umupo po tayo and work it out. Otherwise, Pia, sir, let's just give it to BBM. Panalo na siya ngayon.
Wag
Tulungan
na
lang natin
mag-eleksyon.
siya.
Survey na lang. Siya na talaga.
Hindi ba?
Oo.
Yun na eh.
Pero pag
Kalokohan na to.
pero pag gusto, may paraan, pag ayaw, maraming dahilan. So ano ba, what is it now at this point, Tim? Marami bang may gusto or maraming ayaw, or are they still what's in it for me? What am I going to get out of this? And ikaw muna, kung gusto mo ako mag-withdraw, ikaw muna. Bakit ako? Ganun.
Yes, Pia. Alam mo, yung
Ba't
sa
ang
amin
gulo
kasi,
nila?
ano na lang kami, parang napagod na kami. That's why we started with that 203 movement, no? And then we found common ground among the volunteers of Lenny, of General Lacson, Senator Lacson, and even Yodi, no? So nakita namin na, hey, we can work together. So we're calling on our candidates, please naman, umupo naman kayo. Wala na to, if this is ego or whatever you call it, please. We believe in you, do something about it. And ito, ayan, kami na tumatawag sa inyo. But you know what is surprising? When we made that call yesterday, wala naman kaming kaplano-plano doon eh. Of course, the ones who left us, talagang they really planned for it. But kami na naiwan, we just wanted to have a unity call. And surprisingly, in the afternoon, ang dami nagtawag sa amin. And I found out that there's about 20%, correct me if I'm wrong, that are still undecided. And these are the ones that are now calling us and say, let's push for unity. Let's try to work it out. I saw your preview kanina, si
Lito
President
David.
Aquino.
Oh, yes, Noy in 2016.
He
Noy
was
Aquino
calling for the
2016.
same thing.
Yes.
Maybe one thing different here is that kaming mga volunteers are the ones calling for it. Otherwise, sabi ko nga, let's just sit down and work on governance, nation building for the next 6 years with who apparently will win this race.
All right. We're going to have to take a very quick break. Still with us when we come back, Tim Orbos and July Tihanki. This is Politics as Usual. Be right back.
Ang gusto kong unification, ayoko yung dahil kaaway mo lang yung isang pamilya, kaya ka tatakbo. Ang tunay nating kaaway ay yung hirap na dinaranas ng tao. Kasi yun ang purpose ng paglaban ko eh. Maging alternatibo ng taong bayan sa nag-aaway na dalawang kulay.
Welcome back to Politics as Usual. I'm Pia Hontiveros. This is your weekly political appointment fix. What did that sound like to you, Professor July Tihanki, yung sinasabi ni Isko?
Well, first of all, I would like to comment on what Tim Orbos
okay.
said.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I believe really that local leaders, and even parallel campaign groups, are more attuned, to the ground. So they're the ones who really know the sentiments. And they're sensing something. In the previous weeks, we've seen veteran politicians deciding and switching. Iba-iba lang nga yung permutation, pero they've decided, like Kong Joey Salceda and Speaker Alvarez. And now, we are seeing more of these. So,
P.D. Barzago of Cavite.
Oh, yeah, of course. So, talagang they are sensing something. So, but politicians are creatures of habit kasi. They're, of course, they're in it to win. And the problem with most of our politicians is they think they will win and they can do it on their own. But this is a different election, and we are facing, kumbaga, an existential crisis or for democracy itself, because how would our country appear if after more than 30 years, we have the return of the Marcoses, So for some, that's an existential crisis,
Yeah.
And
But you have an interesting term for it.
and of course, we call it authoritarian nostalgia. So
yeah.
because let's face it, 50+% of our electorate are from 18 to 44. And those in the age bracket of 44, they were just in elementary during EDSA. So they do not know anything about martial law or Marcos. And then with social media tends to flatten history. So they tend to believe all this revisionist history on TikTok, and YouTube, and rather than the books that have been published,
or through
by
oral
academics,
history,
and through oral
in
history,
kwento.
Yeah. So
Okay.
that's where we are right now, and that's the reason why it is imperative for those, kasi nga tignan mo yung mga numero nila, Pia, kahit pag samasamahin mo sila, kapos pa rin,
Right.
But it's the synergistic combination. If they come together, that can be the booster shot that will propel the most competitive candidate.
And to draw in yung sinasabi mo kanina na soft votes. Kasi
Yes.
marami pang ring undecided.
Yes, maraming
And, well, Tim
undecided,
was saying,
Right,
Oh, yeah.
right. So, marami pa rin undecided, So,
or undecided or merong first, second, third choice.
first,
Okay.
second, and third choice.
Oo, but
So,
okay. Pero what are they waiting for? Yung mga undecided na yon, yung mga soft votes. Anong hinihintay nila?
yung iba dyan kasi, I'm sure, may pag-agam-agam din sa candidacy ni BBM. Kasi hindi naman lahat totally nadala dun sa authoritarian nostalgia. Hindi naman talaga lahat. Sabi nga ni Richard, hey Darian, guess mo last time, a large chunk of it, mga bandwagoners yan. Kasi kung sino yung sikat. And yun yung tinatawag din nating tactical voting or strategic voting, na karaniwan sa mga botante natin, doon sila sa llamado, di ba?
Sa llamado. Oo. Pero ngayon kasi, hindi naman llamado si Lenny na number 2 ngayon.
Well, doon sa mga non-BBM supporters, siya yung pinakamalapit. Siya yung closest to, doon nga, sabi nga natin, in the finals, di ba?
Oo. Why yung mga sa anti-BBM voters,
Right.
they would choose Lenny, but they wouldn't choose Ping or Isko or Manny. Is it because nandun sila sa baba, they're in the lower ranks, they have lesser votes, and therefore, why will I vote for someone na hindi naman talaga sigurado? Ganun ba yun?
Well, yeah, that's because the political tradition of the Lenny supporters nanggaling sila sa yellow, And the yellow movement is a middle class movement, And that's the reason why some of the other voters are saying na medyo elitista.
Elitista, right.
So, but the middle class have always been ambivalent when it comes to democracy. Remember, the middle class supported Marcos when he declared martial law in 72, but they led EDSA in 86, di ba? And in the same manner, they supported, a large chunk of them supported Duterte in 2016. Pero most of them are nasa streets uli supporting the pink movement.
Okay. Tim Orbos is still joining us via Zoom. Tim, what do you think so far of what Professor July has said. And one of the first things he said kanina was that you guys have your eyes and ear very close to the ground, so you can sense something. So explain more about what you sense down on the ground.
I think that what Professor said about people, going for that bandwagon of X, sino nauuna, makikita mo talaga yon eh. It's just like pag may nakita kang artista, that spur of the moment, you like it, but at the end of the day, you go home and then there's blankness in you. I think that's what we should capture. And then that's what we're missing. Doon na nakikita namin eh. There's after the brouhaha, then what happens? Wala. And the problem is, nagfo-focus tayo doon and all candidates are focusing on that fiesta mood without looking at after the fiesta, what happens. Yun yung nakikita namin na hindi kami makasagot. Hindi namin masagot yan because we're now being drawn into the fiesta warfare, as they say. But
Okay.
to answer the questions of what happens tomorrow, saan ka and all of that, wala. And nandun yung blanco.
Yeah.
Nobody's answering that. And we feel that should be answered now. And since we're talking to our leaders, they should now band and try to answer that. And I think that might be the differentiator that we can get. But sana magsama-sama sila. Kasi nandun naman na sinasabi na nila lahat eh.
Well, since you made that call for unity, ano yung sagot ng mga kandidato mismo or yung mga tao nila who are very, very close to them? Is there that possibility or, are you just, a voice in the wilderness and, hindi ka na lang nila papansinin? Or what? Are they going to listen?
Tulad ng sinabi ninyo kanina, time is of the essence, but we'll keep on pushing the envelope until we can.
So in other words, hindi sila sumasagot?
Wake
Dead
up
ba
call
muna?
So,
Dead
di
ba
ba
muna
pagka,
sila?
Hindi pa siguro, masama pa yung gising nila sa sinasabi namin. Dahil di ba, you're supposed to be followers, di ba?
Yeah.
You're not supposed to question how campaigns are being run, how the candidate is moving around. But at the end of the day, this is democracy. We have the right to say our piece. And if we're telling our leaders, hey, shape up, mag-usap-usap kayo, I think we have the right to do that. And magalit man sila sa amin, I think that is the job that we have to do at this point in time. Yun lang po. And if we go home after this, we've tried our best, salamat. Sabi ko nga doon sa isang kasama ko, Pia, paano kayo pagka yung lolo ka na? Ano sasabihin mo sa apo mo 10 years from now? Natalo yung kandidato natin. Ano sasabihin mo? Ang sabi ko sa kanya, sasabihin mo, pumirma ka doon sa call for unity. Yun ang pinaka-importante. Whether it works or not, we tried our best to make this thing work.
Okay, and I
Rather
guess...
than, yeah.
And I guess that would be your answer because I was about to ask you, can you really stop a Marcos Jr. presidency? And I guess you're going to repeat that, what you just said. Basta pumirma ako doon and no matter what happens.
I still believe we can make this work. We have enough time. Tulad na sinabi ni Professor kanina, we just hold on to that bandwagon. That 20% undecided will move. And then we're relying on those who want yung lamang na may galaw, na exciting, sasama sa atin. And then let's sit down. Let's sit down. Otherwise, sabi ko nga, tigil na natin to, suportahan na lang natin yung mananalo. Baka kailangan din naman niya yung tulong. So, it is. I saw the previous of Richard Ayardan. Tama siya eh. We need to also review our political system. It's
Right.
too cult-based.
Hindi na
too
pwedeng
personality
ganito. 10 candidates for Tama na.
Yeah.
Tama na. We've had enough.
Tama na.
No? Diyos ko. At saka it won't work. Pag debate, kulang ang oras eh. Dapat dalawa lang kasi sila. Okay. Tim, we're gonna let you go now. But before we do, you have 2 minutes for your final words.
We still have enough time. There is still hope. Nothing against BBM or Sara. But since we're here and we know tayo na nakita natin what has happened in the past, why return to the past when we can move to the future? It's our fault if we don't. No, so please lang, mga candidates namin, candidate si Lenny, Ping Lacson, MP, Yodi, please, mag-usap-usap naman kayo. At the very least, para kami sa mga supporters nyo, para sa bayan, please. And I am sure a lot of volunteers on all sides feel the same way. Mag-usap-usap po tayo, there is still hope. There's nothing wrong with talking and reaching out. Yun lang, Pia, many thanks again, and we hope and pray that we have a good nation for our children 6 years down the road.
Many thanks to you also, Tim Orbos. Maraming salamat for joining us on the show. So we're going to let you go at this point, but Professor July Tihanki will still be with us until the end of the show. We'll be back shortly. Stay with us. This is Politics as Usual. Welcome back to Politics as Usual. A volunteer group wants presidential candidates Ping Lacson, Isko Moreno, Manny Pacquiao, and Leni Robredo, and even Leody de Guzman to sit down and unite and work together against a very possible Marcos Jr. victory in just over a month before the Filipino votes. Joining us now is Lito Banayo, campaign manager, presidential aspirant Isko Moreno, and still with us is Professor and political analyst July Tihanki. Sir Lito, good evening. Thank you very much for being with us. Can you tell us first, explain more what Isko Moreno meant when he said what he said earlier, as we showed on the show just a while ago?
Pia, thank you for this opportunity. Professor Tihanki, good evening. And to all your viewers, good evening. When Isko Moreno and Doc Willie started to the campaign and filed their certificates of candidacy, it was very clear that they are here to present solutions to problems that the ordinary Filipino at this point in time is suffering from. It is not because we or the candidates dislike one faction or the other faction. It's precisely our point in this campaign. We are not to be caught between two warring factions of two political families, no, who have ruled this country for so long and have brought so much despondency and hopelessness among the people. That is why we are presenting a fresh face. There are no dynasts at all in our ticket, no, and we are presenting solutions. We are presenting a crisis management team, no, and so that is what we mean by what Mayor Isko said, no? Hindi ito laban ng dalawang pamilya o dalawang paksyon, dalawang kulay, dilaw, pink, pula, whatever, no? Ito'y laban para sa tao, para sa mamamayan.
Well, earlier on in the campaign, I remember Isko explaining na you don't run because you want to defeat Bongbong Marcos, for example, no. But at the same time, kanina we also had on the show Tim Orbos, and he was saying, pwede bang lahat sila for all of them, all these anti-Marcos forces supposedly, to sit down and agree and unite to prevent a BBM victory. What do you think of that?
Well, unang-una, no, lahat ng mga assumptions na ito are based on surveys. Now, while I do not dispute that surveys are a scientific measurement of people's sentiments in a given time frame, we have to understand that because of so much false information, so much fake news, and paid trolls that bash candidates, no? Maraming mga respondents sa surveys na takot magsabi ng totohanang damdamin nila. So, while as I said, I do not dispute the methodologies, I tend to question whether people are responding to the surveys properly as in the past. Nung araw siguro, mas marirely, but kasi parang ang nangyayari sa atin, we are driven by surveys. Parang wag na tayong mag-election kung surveys na rin lang ang siyang magiging punot dulo ng ating to create bandwagon mentality. Para kaya pa tayo nag-eleksyon. Pangalawa, sino ba ang gumawa nitong 1987 Constitution na ito na gumawa ng multi-party system in a presidential form of government? Dati-dati meron tayong mga kumbensyon para pumili ng kandidato ang dalawang partido. Pero ngayon multi-party So anong sasabihin natin ngayon na yung mga multi-parties na ito magsama-sama para sa iisang partido? No? I mean, that's the setup, that's the system. We have to work within that system, even if we do not like that system. And we have seen that it has failed so many times during the past 30 years or so.
So as a political strategist, what you're saying is that Isko is definitely not going to give way or not going to, hindi naman sa withdraw, no, but say na, okay, I'm not going to run anymore. Can I just endorse Leni Robredo or whoever? That's not going to happen. That's what you're saying.
Well, the other issue, Pia, is the element of trust. I must be very frank, no? Magtitiwala pa ba kami sa kanya? Magtitiwala pa ba si Isko Moreno o si Ping Lacson o si Calyodi o si Manny Pacquiao sa kanya, no? Base lamang doon sa sinasabing sa surveys na lamang siya ng 5.0 or 7 points there over the other candidates, no?
Okay. Kanina binanggit mo, Sir Lito, no, yung two warring families. So of course we're talking about the Aquinos and the Marcoses. Although wala namang Aquino running this election, but of course you have the Kakampinks or yung mga dating dilawan represented by Leni and Leni Robredo and Kiko Pangilinan. And then up against at least she's one of them, up against Marcos. A while ago, July Tiangki was saying, what are we going to look like when in the end we elect Marcos Jr. as president?
Well, nasa sa tao yan eh. Sila nagdidesisyon eh. The point I'm trying to stress, Pia, is if we're seeing, assuming that the surveys are correct, assuming that people are responding properly to the surveys and not hiding their true feelings and their true sentiments, what we are seeing kasi here is a distinct phenomenon where people, as Professor Tihanki said earlier, especially those 18 to 44, those belonging to the age bracket of 18 to 44, which constitute about half of the electorate, probably more, they have lived through from 1986 to the present. They have lived through that period, and they have not seen any real change in their lives. No meaningful change in their lives, no? So they begin to have yun naman mga matatanda, no, na lalo na yung mga senior citizens talaga, some of them have a nostalgia for
authoritarian nostalgia nga, sabi ni authoritarian nostalgia, sabi ni July. Yeah, oo. And then they begin to doubt democracy or think na ano ba nangyari sa atin? Gumanda ba buhay natin? Parang gano'n, ano?
Hindi dapat demokrasya ang kanilang they should not doubt democracy. What they should look for are fresh leaders who speak a different language, leaders who can communicate with them and can empathize with their plight. Now you cannot empathize, these elitists in the yellow-pink camp, no, cannot empathize with them, no. So yun ang nangyayari. No? So that is why kami, Isko Moreno for that matter, and Doc Willie, we're presenting ourselves as an alternative, no? So that people can choose not the ancien regime of Ferdinand Marcos Jr. represents, nor the failed regime that the Yellow Pinks are presenting to the people.
And you should know what you're talking about because you were with those campaigns also and helped them get elected.
Yes,
right?
and I have regretted some of them. I have regretted the.
But wow, the wealth of political experience,
Yeah,
so you know what you're talking about.
I have regretted, some of the candidates that I supported, no? Because when they were they either tended to abuse or they did not do anything concrete in terms of achievements to uplift the lives of the Filipino people. I see that in Isko. I don't see that in other candidates now.
Okay, Professor July Tihanki, Lito Banay said a mouthful. Now it's your turn before we go to a break.
Well, yeah, I'm sure my good friend Lito Banayo was with Doy Laurel and he was also with Noynoy Aquino. So he would know the value of political sacrifice, no, when Doy Laurel sacrificed his candidacy and Mar Rojas for Noynoy, no. So yeah, I agree, no, solutions are good, but they are useless unless you're in power, di ba? So while there are some truth to the fear factor might have affected surveys. It might have affected even the continuing popularity of President Duterte. But remember, these are tools, these are guideposts, and it's showing us that we're headed straight down the ravine. No? So if we continue...
Hindi naman daw ravine eh.
Ano ba? So,
Sabi nila maganda daw yung kinabukasan.
Oh, well, yeah, but yeah, in the end lahat talo, no. So it's as simple as that, no. So yeah, ngayon we barely have a month to go, and if you don't get your act together, just consider this, no. Whether the party system is flawed, whether it's multi-party or two-party, there's a strategy called coalition building.
Okay. Earlier, Lito Banay was explaining, ito nga, between the Marcoses and the Aquinos, the failed regime, parehong didn't deliver anyway. No? So what are we talking about here? Because if you're talking about unity,
Right.
Obviously what we're headed in the direction of unite against the strongest contender,
Yeah.
so surveys say.
One of the many ironies of this electoral cycle is the fact that the most divisive political brand managed to appropriate the message of unity and hope. No? And it has resonated. No? And that says a lot about what has gone wrong with our political system. No? So
Yeah, he didn't present a platform. He just said,
Unity.
"I will unite. I will
will
unite the
Yeah.
country," and people
Unite.
do
So,
believe him.
It's a rebranding. It's a political marketing strategy that worked
But it's
very well for
brilliant.
him. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
It will go down in history book, no, as one of the brilliant. But remember, in 1998, no, ERAP also had that. Bandwagon effect, no, and I think Lito Banay was also with Erap Estrada, no. So talagang may
Lito
ganun,
has
eh.
brought a lot of people to Malacanang. Let's just say.
Right. So yeah, but then there were efforts also to unite the non-ERAP candidates back then. I was telling you, you were covering them. Oplan Lords, no, Lim, Osmeña, Rocco, De Villa, Santiago, but it failed, no. So there have been similar attempts, and just like what happened in 2016. Because in the end, no, they're all self-interested utility maximizers. No? In the end, they think they will win. No? But the solution really is to look for the most optimum strategy in which they all win. So
Yeah.
it's a negotiation. No?
Right.
They should, they should give concession and they should ask for something.
Well, that's why Richard was saying last week, no, dapat kasi runoff elections, which is what so
Well,
many people are talking about. At the same time, Lito did make a point earlier. Sino ba gumawa ng 1987 Constitution that allowed this multi-party system to come into existence, and therefore we have multiple candidates. We have more than two.
Well, mahabang storya yan, no?
Yeah.
Pero ang dahilan kung ba't may multi-party system tayo ay dahil maraming political dynasty. Sila yung gumagawa ng mga multi-parties.
We will hear more from our guests when we come back. Lito Banayo joining us via Zoom, and here in the studio, Professor July Tihanki. This is Politics as Usual. Be right back. We are on our final stretch. This is Politics as Usual. Parang last month na lang before the elections. Our guests, earlier, Ikaw Muna Pilipinas convener Tim Orbos, who we said goodbye to earlier, and join us via Zoom, Lito Banayo, who is with the Isko Moreno campaign, and the political analyst, Professor July Tihanki, here in the studio. Final words, Lito Banayo, sir.
Yeah, magandang pakinggan yung unity, no? Pero or yung coalescing together to fight a perceived threat to democracy. But one, I've been through so many efforts at coalition building. And while I really feel bad about having to say these, no, because some of the characters whom I will describe are are already, have already passed to the great beyond, no? But there was so much treachery in these coalition talks, no? May usapan pero hindi naman tinutupad, no? So that is one. That's why earlier I mentioned the element of trust. Mapagkakatiwalaan mo ba yung kausap mo? Kaya mahirap yung mga talks na yan. Dapat yan, noong bago nag-file ng mga certificates of candidacy, seryoso at sincero ang ginawang mga usapan para magkaroon ng unity. Ngayon, napakahirap na eh. Napakahirap ng gawin yan. Pangalawa, yun na nga, hintayin natin. Nagkakaroon naman tayo ng mga issues na nagkakaroon ng traction. For instance, the 203 billion estate tax debt, no? Which is a sign of entitlement on the part of the Marcos family. So hindi pa naman ito natetest sa mga surveys na no. So rather than force the issue of unity ngayon simply because surveys say this or that, na napakalaki ng lamang ni Ferdinand Marcos Jr., bigyan natin ng last mile, tingnan natin muna, no? Besides which, wag naman tayo masyadong matakot din na para bang pag nanalo si Ferdinand Marcos Jr., no? This is a different parang siguradong patay na ang demokrasya natin, no? Marami namang paraan para buhayin ang demokrasya, no? Kaya nga may People's Initiative, kaya nagkaroon tayo ng EDSA 2, no? Maraming mga paraan, no? So wag naman yung parang sinarhan na natin ang pinto at sasabihin natin magsama-sama, otherwise the road to perdition, no? Naman sigurong gano'n.
All right. Thank you very much, Lito. Professor July.
Well, BBM's lead is unprecedented, but he is not unbeatable. No? There's a narrow pathway for victory for those challenging him in the end. And that's 43% of his numbers are still soft votes and non-hard voters. No? So that is something that only a united force can aspire to win if only the politicians will think of the country more than their personal political interests.
Bayan muna bago ang sarili sana. And well, you have that book, no?
Patronage Democracy, Clans, Clients, and Competition in Local Elections.
Ateneo University
Available
Press. Yeah.
on Ateneo de Manila University Press, on Lazada and Shopee.
And how interesting to see the word democracy and patronage side by side. Thank you so much for being with us tonight, Professor July Tihanki and Lito Banayon. Earlier, Timor Boss, maraming salamat. We have been told before, don't talk politics at the dinner table or the family reunion or in Viber groups and risk digital warfare. But we can talk about it here at this table on this show, your weekly political appointment fix, politics as usual. I'm Pia Hontiveros. See you back here next Tuesday, 8 p.m.